Toasties. I'm Missy.
And I'm Johnsy.
And welcome to our Toasted Shenanigans.
What you drinking?
I'm a creature of habit here today. I have a Moscato again.
Go figure.
Go figure, yeah. I like what I like, okay?
I think the listeners need to give you a couple drink suggestions.
I mean, I would
open up your drinking.
Maybe they can find us on Toasted Shenanigans on Instagram and drop in a few of your drink requests. Maybe I'll pick yours and let you know. Well, what you got over there?
I got one of my favorites.
Ooh.
I got me some whiskey.
Whiskey. I do like whiskey.
I got me some Apple Crown whiskey.
Apple Crown.
With a little bit of Sprite. Just a splash.
Just a splash.
In your Pray About It Girl mug.
Pray About It Girl. I feel like that's almost a little fitting for what we're talking about today.
You pray about it, but I don't know what the whiskey will.
The whiskey will, yeah. I like whiskey. I like Honey Jack. I do like Honey Jack, actually.
I'm not a big fan of Jack Daniels. I think they taste like turpentine.
I am not a fan of Jack Daniels, but I love the Honey Jack.
I do like the Honey Jack.
I love the Honey Jack.
My favorite is the Jim Beam Red Stag.
That on some ice is delicious.
Yeah, I can drink that just by itself.
Yes.
Goes down way too easily.
That I agree.
But, no, I love whiskey. I'm a whiskey lady.
Whiskey is delicious. So, grab your guys' drink. Come get hydrated with us as we talk about, what are we talking about today?
We are talking about Joann Tate.
Ooh.
So I came across this story actually listening to another podcast.
Yes.
The name of that podcast is called The Real Killer. So if you've got the time, I highly recommend going and listening to it. I'm just going to, kind of touch on, the brief base story of it. I can't go into all the details. The I forget her name, but who did the podcast did a phenomenal job, and she's actually investigated it, and you actually hear witness testimony. You get to basically know everybody, and it's about 10 to 13 episodes. Like I said, if you have the time, I highly recommend it. It was a great one. I also watched about this case on, what was it? It was Crime Watch Daily.
I heard the story on there.
I watched on YouTube. So I would definitely recommend that too as well. Now that one is in two-parters. It's kind of how this story will be too as well.
Yeah, this is going to be a two-part story. So you guys are going to have to come back for the rest of it later.
Definitely, because this one's a doozy, and it's really fucked up what happened, and
it's way fucked up.
It ruined many people's lives, basically.
Yeah.
But I'll give you a little bit of, what I took away from The Real Killer, and in the next one we'll go through and talk about more about the forensics and the conviction, and maybe talk a little bit about who possibly it was.
Which I'm excited to learn a little bit more about him, and he'll be another story on our...
Yeah.
There'll be another episode for you guys, so you'll have to definitely come back on that one, because that one is a fucking doozy.
Yeah, it's just something that just keeps on going. But anyways, let's get into it. Like I said, we're going to talk about Joann Tate. This happened in the early 80s.
1982.
Yes. And Joann was basically... They were very much so family people, but she grew up also in a house that didn't have a whole lot of love. There wasn't a whole lot of affection. Not necessarily saying that they didn't love each other. It just wasn't shown a whole lot.
They weren't the touchy-feely kind of family.
Yeah, and she was described to be a very amazing woman, sister, and mother, very protective of her children. And sometimes may have been a little bit too loyal and trusting too as well. She tended to see the best in people versus for who they actually really were.
Oh, fuck, I know a couple people like that.
She was a very beautiful woman, but she was a larger woman with curves. So that obviously took a toll on her self-confidence.
Hey, curvy girls are the best.
They are.
But it was the 80s.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Bullshit.
And she definitely took pride in her appearance and whatnot. Mm-hmm. But she also went looking for love in all the wrong places.
Mm.
Um, she definitely struggled with her choice in men, starting with her first marriage. Her first marriage, she did have a daughter, um, who at the time of the crime is 17. You really won't hear much about her. Um,
Oh, I didn't know that.
she prefers to stay anonymous, so I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, I didn't know she had an older
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she had three
daughter.
daughters.
Yeah, I knew she had the two. I did
Um,
not know she had a third.
yeah.
Okay.
But basically, the marriage became pretty abusive to the point where, Joann was a regular patient at the hospital.
Oh no.
Yeah, so I think she just, finally came to realize what, her and her daughter deserve better.
Okay. Good.
So,
Good on her.
yes,
Fuck
absolutely.
that man.
Nobody deserves that.
Nobody.
But anyways, she went back home in hopes for a better life for her and her daughter.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when she arrived back home, unfortunately, she actually got into a really bad car accident. So, her younger brother, who I believe was, I think he said like 11 or 13 at the time. I don't know. I could have gotten that wrong, but basically, he was in the car with her, and a drunk driver had struck them at 70 miles per hour
Oh
head
my
on.
gosh.
He was injured, but basically, if it wasn't for him walking away, trying to go find help, that would have been it for her. But
Like she would have died in that car.
yeah,
Oh, so her little brother
yes.
saved he because he was hurt but still able to move.
Yeah, he was able to go get help. And again, this was even what in the 70s. This was before cell phones.
Like
Yeah,
I was saying in Slenderman, like
yeah.
thank
So,
fucking God for cell phones
yep.
because like could you imagine seeing a situation and be like I have
Mm-hmm.
to walk away from this and hope to goodness when I come back that person's alive.
Yep. But she broke 3 ribs,
Oof.
her sternum,
Oh.
her hip in multiple places,
Oh.
her leg, arm, and chin.
Chin?
And yeah, because of the steering wheel.
Mm.
She was told by numerous doctors that she would never walk again. However, Joann refused to let that stop her. She's, I've got to
Girl
provide for my
power.
my children. I got to do what I got to do.
Right.
So, that being said, her
Injuries.
injuries, sorry, were enough to keep her away from work, but she still had to do what she had to do. So she would actually go around collect cans for recycling to sell.
Probably back when it was well
Yeah,
worth it. I mean, it's still worth it. Please save the planet. Please recycle.
but and then on the side, she also would, she sold Avon around the neighborhood.
Oh, Avon was the shit back then.
Yeah, it was very big. It was a
Very
very big and
big.
upcoming.
Very
Um,
big. Avon calling.
yep. My mom actually did it back in the day.
I tried to do it.
I could never do
It
that.
was it was 2010. I'll just say I was not successful. I'm not telling Avon anymore, guys.
But anyways, financial issues were not her only struggle. Really, her choice of men was really,
Still a struggle.
yeah, and
She had a type.
yeah.
Oh no.
Unfortunately, she
Where do you
did.
think like where was that learned though? Like I understand her family was loving but and not affectionate, like and touching and stuff, but like
I think just because she saw herself in a negative way, that she just lowered her standards.
it had to have been.
Yeah.
Because you know sometimes you always wonder like how does a person like find somebody so horrible when they were in a home that had
Mm-hmm.
examples of great kind of kindness. That or her love language is touch,
Yeah.
and that's all she ever wanted. Because that's a thing too.
Yeah. It's just, I really think she looked down on herself, and it is a shame to hear that. But
Yeah, it is.
don't do that, guys.
No, please don't.
Um, but yeah, she definitely lowered her standards and met all the wrong men.
That's so
I
awful.
will say that she had many relations and went on many dates with many men, and was even married a few times.
Oh gosh, and it's the 80s, so that's like
Yeah. Uh, but she did leave a diary about these dates and the men that she had been on these dates with, recalling any kind of details or where they went, who they were.
it's kind of smart.
Yeah. Um, so good on her. But what didn't seem right about this was on the very first page, Joann had left a message for the finder of the diary.
That's weird.
Yeah, and
It's
this
like she knew something bad was coming her
exactly.
way. That's so weird.
And when they found this diary when going through like searching for evidence and whatnot, and when they found the diary, it was underneath her mattress with a hatchet and a magazine. So obviously she felt threatened enough to
She
sleep
knew
on top of a
something
yeah.
was
So
not
something
right.
was not right.
Oh, that poor girl.
Yeah. This story is just really it's awful. It's shocking. But her warning on her diary was verbatim. I'm only writing all this down in case something would happen to me. You would know where to look and people I was with.
Oh shit. She
So
knew she was with bad people.
that's what I'm saying. Like, she still knew at the end of the day what it was wrong.
Oh, that's even. I feel like it's even worse.
Yeah.
She knew she was doing was wrong, yet she still kept doing it.
But with her other marriage, she had two other beautiful daughters. Obviously, it didn't work out. She moved into an apartment with her daughter, who was 7 at the time of the crime, and her other daughter, who was 4 at the time of the crime.
That's Melissa and Renee.
Correct. So I will go ahead and start going into the actual details of the crime, but I do want to let everybody know this episode does contain graphic content. So if
Yes.
you are any way affected by anything sensitive, please do not listen. So it was April 27th, 1982,
Yeah.
and this happened at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Oh,
It was at 1418 Fair Street, and this was in St. Louis, Missouri. But
Midwest again.
yeah, something in the water. But anyways, Joann's 7-year-old daughter woke up to a loud commotion in hearing her mother scream.
Oh my gosh, I can't even like that already.
And basically the way the apartment was set up was like from the girls' bedroom you could see across to mommy's room, but you could also see across to like the living room and stuff too as well.
Okay.
So it's more like a little bit open.
Oh, which is pretty like progressive in the 80s to have an open concept type.
Yeah.
That's
And obviously she left the doors
open.
open while the
Well,
girls
you
were
have a
sleeping.
7-year-old and
Yeah.
a 4 years?
4-year-old, yeah.
Yeah, you're gonna leave doors open because you want to. I don't know. I remember being young and
I
all the
don't
doors
think
were
they
always
yeah, I
open.
don't think they ever closed the doors when
Now
us
I
when
feel
we
like
were
that's
younger.
more of a current thing that it's encouraged to keep your doors closed while you sleep because of like in case of a fire at night. Supposedly having your doors shut is
Yeah,
supposed
because
to
if you
like
open it, the air coming in.
yeah is gonna feed the fire
Yeah.
more. So now you're encouraged to sleep with your doors closed. But I remember like as a child like. You slept the doors were always open. My bedroom door was always open. My parents' bedroom was never open all the way. It was like cracked as a kid, but it was never shut all the way. But my room was open. My siblings' rooms were open.
I think it was more so at my household was just like, fuck, make sure these kids are actually fucking sleeping, doing what they're supposed to be doing,
Well, that
and
and
not staying up.
like we didn't have night lights or anything when I was a kid. And this now for me, 1982, I was a twinkle in my daddy's eye. Like
Yeah,
I
we
wasn't
weren't.
born then.
Yeah, we weren't thought of yet.
But like we didn't have night lights. Our night light was the hall light, so our door was open to let the hall light into our bedrooms.
Shit, I don't even remember having any night lights at all. Because I remember doing that thing like where you had to get up in the middle of the night and go use the restroom and like sprint for your life because the boogeyman was right behind you.
Slenderman.
Yeah. But anyways, facts of the case. So 7-year-old Melissa hears her mother screaming, hears a commotion, and like any curious 7-year-old, she sits up in bed to see what's going on. So obviously she's like looking out, and when she looks out, she can see her mom who is laying on the floor,
Oh gosh.
and beside her is a naked man.
Oh gosh.
And Melissa just kind of like I wouldn't even be able to talk at this point, especially as a 7-year-old. But she asked the man, "Why is mommy on the floor?" And the intruder takes time to assure her mommy's just sleeping. Well, Melissa seems to recognize the voice she recalls when she hears this man talk.
Mm-hmm.
But she's 7. She can't really seem to place who it is.
Well, like, think about it. Like, how far back do you remember? How old are you?
At 7, I don't know if I remember much from when I was.
The biggest thing I remember around, I wasn't even 7, I was 6, is I broke my arm.
I mean, I don't like. I remember stuff from my childhood, but in that direct moment where you're like just you remember at that exact age, I don't remember that stuff anymore.
Right, that's what I'm saying. That's crazy.
But anyways, so in his own way to try to soothe Melissa and comfort her,
That just gave me the
yeah,
creeps. He's a
this,
naked man trying to soothe a 7-year-old.
yeah, just, and guys, beware. Remember, this contains a lot of graphic content, so if you can't listen, don't. Um, the intruder comes over to Melissa, picks her up, and carries her into her mom's room. And he lays her on the bed and sexually assaults her. Now, Melissa evidently, knows this is wrong, but at the same time, she's terrified. And
It's 4 a.m.
yeah, this guy tries to force Melissa to perform oral sex on him. And she actually decides to fight back, and she bites him in exchange.
Good girl.
Now this pisses him off.
Of course. All men
And
get pissed if they bite it.
yeah, she recalls certain parts and says that she remembers seeing him hiding a knife, and that's why she was trying not to upset him. But at this point, it's too late. And enraged, he stabs her multiple times over and over and over again. And Melissa just stops fighting, hoping he'll just go away.
Oh, honey.
He does cease, and she thinks that she's good to go. She can run and like get away, get to her sister, get to her mom, get help.
She was stabbed repeatedly and again still thought she didn't get up.
Yes.
Like these kids, apparently we have a trend here going already of these children being stabbed and then getting up and running.
I guess like they're just their adrenaline
It has to
works
be.
differently. But he catches her and he slams her back onto the bed. He stabs her once more in the chest and then slices her from her vagina to her rectum.
Oh no, he gave her a episiotomy.
Yeah.
Oh.
This guy's a shitbag, obviously.
Clearly a fucking shitbag.
Um,
Oh, sweet baby girl.
yeah. In survival mode, Melissa, she plays dead. And this part, like, just absolutely shocks me. Because you're 7 years old. And, like, you're smart enough to just think, play dead. And she went to the very most part where she was even trying to control her breathing so he wouldn't see her chest moving.
Oh, baby.
So he thinks that, she's gone. He actually goes into the kitchen to wash the knife.
Fucking dick.
Yeah.
Fucking dick.
Now Melissa takes this opportunity. Once again, she goes to her 4-year-old sister and doesn't hear some stirring, doesn't make it like to her exactly in time, and just hides underneath the bed. And she recalls to be one of the most terrifying noises in her life is hearing his boots walking back into
Oh, so he got
their
dressed.
bedroom. Yeah, at some point in time. Or maybe he was just naked with his boots on. I'm not entirely sure.
Who knows?
But he stops at Renee's bed. Renee's a 4-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
And demands that Renee tell him where her bigger sister is. And Renee's just crying. Like, she's 4.
She's 4 and also is probably like sleeping or something.
I think with all the commotion,
She probably did wake up.
yeah, she's woken up and whatnot. You don't hear a lot of Renee's story just because she was so young. And unfortunately now, Renee is no longer with us.
She did pass.
Yeah.
I did read that. She
Yeah.
passed of cancer.
Yeah, she passed a cervical cancer.
Yeah.
But anyways, he's demanding that Renee tell him where her sister is, and all she can do is just cry. Melissa then recalls that all she sees is the bed start to shake and the blood just pour to the floor.
Oh, golly.
He has now assaulted Renee and sliced her throat. And Melissa can't do anything but just lay there and cry and wonder why no one is helping them and who is going to miss her when she dies.
Oh, baby.
So due to shock and blood loss, Melissa drifts in and out of unconsciousness. She comes back for a brief moment, and she actually sees this motherfucker sitting at the end of her mom's bed, smoking cigarettes and watching TV.
Dick.
Yep. Again, she can't really keep her eyes open. She slips away again. When she comes back to this time, it seems that the intruder is gone. So she actually gets up to check on her baby sister. Mm-hmm. And she describes it as trying to, like, communicate with her sister, but she can't because Renee is just covered in blood at this point, and she can't make out her sister's face. And remember, her throat was sliced.
Yeah.
So it's not like she's communicating very well at all. She's just crying. And
Renee is crying or Melissa's crying?
Renee is crying. And Melissa recalls and says that Renee's tears are actually just tearless. She knows she's crying, but they've been through so much trauma and blood loss.
She had no more tears left to
They're
cry.
dehydrated.
Yeah.
There's nothing left in them.
Oh, baby.
But she kind of understands that, Renee wants water. Mm-hmm. So she gets up, stumbles her way into the kitchen. She sees the blood everywhere. She's, very coherent of what she once called a home is now a bloody nightmare.
The fact that this 7-year-old child is able to recognize her baby sister needed water, gets up knowing what happened between her legs, and walks. Like, this is the power of adrenaline.
Yes.
This is
absolutely.
the power of fucking
Absolutely.
adrenaline. Because that's probably what kept this. Again, someone was with this baby girl.
Absolutely.
During this time. She had a guardian angel on her side during that time.
She had to have. But she goes to her mother first, and she's just like, this part just breaks my heart when I heard her describe it. She's just like pleading and begging with her mother to wake up. Please wake up. They need help. Please wake up.
Oh, no.
And she's 7, and like she had stated earlier, like, why is nobody helping them? Where is my mom? Where's the cops? Like, you don't understand how that works.
Right.
You're 7.
You're thinking mommy's going to come and rescue us.
Yeah.
And mommy didn't come and rescue us. But little does she know now, mommy's not waking up.
Yeah.
Mommy is rescuing them right now.
Correct. So Joann doesn't move. She's not waking up. She's obviously gone. Melissa continues her way to the kitchen for her sister's water. And she then describes, because getting the water and where he was washing the knife, there's blood everywhere. So again, each step through what's supposed to be a home, it's just another nightmare for her.
Oh, baby.
But she brings back the water to her sister, and her sister's trying to drink it, and Melissa just notices that it's just spilling from her throat. Yeah. That's how deep he had sliced her throat. How Renee was still living, I have no clue.
How any of them. Well, as you said, she noticed her mom was gone, so
Yeah.
clearly her mother didn't. But how those two girls.
I have no idea how they Oh, they survived, especially with all, like, I saw some of the crime scene photos. It was the worst I've ever seen. There was a lot of blood. It was a nightmare. Um, but Melissa at this point, that's a lot for somebody who just went through what she just went through.
She's
She's
7.
exhausted. Well, not just that, just like what's physically happened to her.
Yeah.
She's exhausted. She can't go on anymore. She decides that she's just going to lay back down in her bed. So she lays back down and slips away again. And she doesn't awake until later that morning when she hears a loud knocking at the door. And obviously, she's terrified to answer the door,
Obviously.
thinking that this man
Is back.
is back.
Because this time, he's going to knock at their door.
Yeah, I heard, so somebody said something about there was like a terrace window or something open, and maybe that's how he entered, but listening and getting to know the case a little bit more, it definitely seems it was somebody they knew, and that Joann had let into the house. So, that's basically what happened that night. We're going to go into the early hours of the next morning.
Okay.
Well, not the next morning, still the same day, because this happened at 4 a.m.
Yeah.
But...
So there's a knock at the door.
Yeah. So, Joann had a current boyfriend. I couldn't find anywhere it said how long they'd been together or whatnot, but his name was Jerry, and evidently he was freaking out because he hadn't heard from Joann, and I guess they were supposed to meet up or something.
Okay.
So, knowing that, like I said before, they were close family, so she calls her little brother Nate, he calls her little brother Nate, the one she was in the car accident with, to see if she's over there, because they spent a lot of time together. Nate doesn't think anything of it, but he's like, no, I haven't heard from her, she's not been around, but I'll call my other siblings and see,
How many siblings does she have?
I can't recollect at the moment.
She had a couple.
Yeah, there was a few of them. But he tries to call her herself. She doesn't answer. And then he calls all the siblings. None of them have heard or seen Joann. And he calls mom.
Okay.
Nobody's heard from Joann. So he's thinking, he's like, okay, this is a little unlike her to not answer the phone for all of us.
Okay, so she's, again, it's not a touchy-feely family, but they do stay in contact with each other.
Yeah, it was just a house that didn't have a whole lot of affection in it.
Okay.
So Nate at this point is pretty unsure, like, what to do. And he says that all of a sudden he just feels a voice telling him go.
Probably hers.
Yeah. And him and Jerry decide to take a ride over to Joann's apartment. And that's when they're both knocking at the door. Obviously that's what Melissa hears, but she doesn't know.
No.
But Nate again just is like, this is not right for her to not answer the door, not answer the phone. And he says he hears that voice again. And it says push the door. So he actually just opens the door and is able to go in.
So it was unlocked,
Yeah.
which is probably for him. He's still like, what the fuck?
Well, yeah, because the intruder, I'm assuming,
didn't lock behind him.
Obviously. But I just think what stood out to me in that, and not saying that he had anything to do with it, but if you're knocking, like, one of my first instincts would be, like, if I'm freaking out, like, I would turn the knob. Would you not?
What do you mean?
Like
lock
you're,
it?
No, like you're freaking out, trying to figure out where your older sister is.
Oh, would you like knock and open the door at the same time? Like,
yeah, like I would.
Yeah, okay. I'm like, what are you talking about? Yeah, no, totally. I've done that. Like, even with my kids, I've done that. Like, I've literally like just barged in, like, what are you doing?
But anyways, he opens the door. The first thing he notices is his naked sister lying on the floor.
Oh, she was naked.
Yeah.
So he was naked and she was naked, or was she, when she saw mommy had clothes on, but later he stripped her down?
She didn't recall because everything I got was from her own words, her own testimony. So if that was
Oh.
something she saw, it wasn't something that.
She instantly remembered.
No, she just knew
Oh,
that.
she knew mommy's on the
She
floor.
remembered mommy was on the floor.
Oh.
Um, but he opens up the door, notices his naked sister is in the room, and there is an object sticking out of her. And then he notices the amount of blood that is absolutely everywhere. He recalls it was on the ceiling, it was on the walls, it was on lampshades,
Oh
curtains,
my
it was everywhere.
fucking goodness.
Obviously, he runs over to Joann, and he can tell as soon as he goes to touch her, she's cold.
She's gone.
She's gone.
Oh gosh.
And he immediately calls the police. And according to Nate, they aren't taking him seriously. They think he's just a lunatic making some kind of sick fucking joke.
Who fucking jokes about that? Who calls me like, oh my gosh, I'm at my sister's house and she's dead? And they're like, ha ha ha, good one. April Fools.
Well, remember, this was the 80s.
I don't fucking care. That's not a joke.
Well, not a whole lot of, like, people have heard of a whole lot of crime. Like, they didn't have access to it like we did. So something like this probably just seemed like abnormal to them.
There was crime. It's just, yeah, that's another episode, guys. Whole other episode. Come back for that one.
But frustrated, he just hangs up on the cops. And he calls his mom. And she picks up and he says, Mom, Joann is dead. You have to get over here now.
Oh gosh.
I can't imagine getting that phone call from anybody, especially abruptly like that.
Yeah, no.
After, especially since you were just calling around to the whole family.
Looking for her.
Yeah. So Nate and Jerry actually leave this crime.
They don't
the crime
go look
scene.
to make sure the girls are there?
No, they actually leave. They go.
They probably were just disgusted already.
Probably in some sort of shock. Like that's not what you think of, and maybe even thought maybe somebody took the girls.
Honestly, my first instinct would be to find the girls.
You
Search the home. You would think. Now, I guess maybe being a mother, like that's my.
I was about to say, yeah.
That's my first instinct. Is I see the mom on the floor. I'm like, fuck, where are the girls? That would be my first instinct.
That's what it kind of was like stood out to me too. But he actually leaves to go get his mother. And the distance from Joann to her mom's house is the same distance from Joann's to the police department. So he picks up his mom and they actually come back and the cops still are not there.
Go fucking figure. So does grandma be like, where's my granddaughters?
So yes.
Does somebody eventually
so
be like, where are the girls?
Immediately Joann's mother runs into the house and runs straight to the girls' bedroom and throws back the blood-soaked blankets to see her girls there. And they're just barely hanging on to life. Barely breathing.
Oh my gosh. So grandma comes and rescues
Yes.
them.
And of course Nate's right behind her. And in his like franticness and shock of himself, he yells at the girls and is like, who did this to you? And Melissa just says one word and she just says Bill.
Bill?
Yeah.
Okay, Kill Bill moment.
Who
the hell is Bill?
That's what everybody would like to know.
So that's the first name she gives is Bill.
Bill. Yeah. That's all she says. Bill.
Okay. Carry on, please.
So the police arrived to the scene a little bit before 11 a.m.
And what time did Nate finally get there at? That was like... The crime happens at 4. He finally showed up at like 9.
He didn't really give a timeline. So he just knows that they showed up shortly after he had already come back to the house. Which is asinine considering how close she lived to the police department.
Right. Okay, carry on. I'm irritated. I'm a lot of emotions.
This whole case is...
I know. I've
fucked.
I've read stuff. I've read it. Just not to this magnitude.
But anyways, The police find Joann Tate face down, beaten, stabbed multiple times, and sodomized with a broom handle.
Oh my gosh.
This is a 4-foot broom handle, and 23 inches of this broom handle have been shoved into Joann.
That's half the fucking broom handle.
Yep. Melissa and Renee are both found in their beds, still bleeding, but at least breathing. Of course, they're rushed to the hospital immediately, and police collect evidence, many kitchen knives. Obviously, they had one of those kitchen blocks with the knives assortments.
Yeah.
And I believe the number was 5 or something. Like, there was only one left in the block. So this dude was just...
He used even her own kitchen knives on her.
Yeah, he was just taking the knives right out of the thing and just
going
using
to town.
all of them.
And then he washed them.
Yeah, they're actually still there at the crime scene.
Oh, how sweet.
One of them that was collected was actually used so severely it was bent into the shape of a crescent moon, and the handle was broken.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Oh.
They collected many blankets. They found some pubic hair, and basically they collected a whole lot of other evidence, and we'll get into that.
Yeah.
Later on. But the investigators and family wasted no time questioning Melissa.
The poor girl's hanging on for dear life, and you're gonna drill her.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sounds familiar. Probably didn't think she was gonna survive, and they had to try to get as much information as they could.
Now, I do know at this point the 17-year-old sister had seen Melissa and had asked her, "Who did this to you?" And I think Melissa was like a little like wish-washy, but she had also just been gone through a lot. She's in the hospital. Surgery just happened. She's on pain medication. And the older sister suggests a guy named Gary, which I think is like some cousin or some sorts. You don't really hear a whole lot about him. He is a suspect. But it's just, again, the reference of all the names that Melissa hears and what she's told.
Right.
Like, she didn't wait for her to answer. She asked, was it Gary?
Oh, she didn't ask
Yeah.
who did this and waited. She was like, who did this? Was it Gary?
Yeah, she made a reference
so
to
of
it.
course,
And you're 7-year-old.
Her 7-year-old little mind who had just been sexually assaulted and mutilated, and then your sister was sexually assaulted and mutilated, and you saw mommy was sexually assaulted and mutilated. You went through all of that, and then you're hanging on with literally a drop of life left in your body. And then you're asked, who did this to you? And then you're asked again, who did this to you? Was it this person? And
it's not just 17-year-old sister. It's like everybody's coming at you. At this point, you've been brutally attacked. Your mom's dead.
Your sister, you
don't know what's going on with your sister right now.
Yeah, but she knew her sister was attacked.
Yeah.
She tried to give her sister water, watching water pour out of her throat as she's trying to drink it. I mean, she witnessed something that no person should ever fucking ever witness in their entire damn life. And then she's being hounded and drilled. Who did it?
Yes.
No time for recovery, just instantly, who the fuck did this?
And what makes it even worse was at this point, Renee couldn't talk.
Because her throat was slit.
Yeah, so Renee's like in very... like in intensive surgery and whatnot. So they're relying on 7-year-old Melissa.
Like, I get it. You guys are trying to, like, find, like, who did it. You want to catch the person who did it. But at the same time, like, you need to leave time for fucking recovery. Mm-hmm. Oh, my gosh. Carry on.
But Melissa was on pain medication, and it was noted, because they had to have a social worker there, that she was still very alert, even though she was on the pain medication. But within that 12-hour span that they were grilling Melissa at the hospital, she had recanted who it was multiple times.
Melissa did?
Yeah.
Okay.
Finally, she just said that she was just so tired and wanting to be left alone. She settles with the first name she had given.
Okay.
Bill. So, going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Finally, it's just going back to Bill. She goes on to tell the investigators that she heard her mom say Bill during the attack, and that Bill had actually known their names, had used them when speaking to them, when doing the attacks.
Okay.
She tells authorities that she has actually been to Bill's house last year.
Okay.
That he lived by a park, drives a yellow car, and has lots of animals. Again, you're 7. You're not going to remember a whole lot. Certain things were going to stick out to you, and I guess of those,
Yellow car.
all make sense.
Yeah. Was Bill in this diary?
So that goes back to the evidence, but there was no one named Bill in the diary.
Okay.
Okay. That's all I'll tell you right now.
Okay, I know. I'm trying to jump ahead. Sorry, guys. Trying to get you some spoilers. That's all.
But the police continue with the investigation. They interrogate everyone around them, everyone around Joann, including her brother, the boyfriend, neighbors, and ex. Nobody's safe. I think all in all, there was like somewhere between like 30 and 35. I think it was 33 to be exact.
Suspects? Oh my fucking goodness.
Yeah. And they're struggling to find who did this or who is Bill.
Yeah.
Because they still don't know who Bill is. But this detective comes back from vacation, and he takes the lead on this case.
That's always how it happens.
Mm-hmm.
It's always the one detective who's like, I got it, guys.
But his name is Joe Burgoon, and
Sorry,
I know.
His name.
As soon as I heard his, I laughed at it too. I was rhyming it with all kinds of stuff, but I won't say anything because it's offensive. But Joe Burgoon took over the case very, very quickly, and he was a well-known detective in Missouri, and was actually considered a legend and nicknamed Father Homicide.
I don't know if I'd want that nickname, Father Homicide.
Well, I guess because he worked so many homicide cases.
Like he was good at cracking them?
Yeah,
okay.
I guess so. But anyways, May 4th, Burgoon came to the hospital to interview Melissa and Renee for the first time.
Okay, so May 4th. The crime happened when? What was the date again?
It was April 27th.
April. Okay, so not many days have gone by.
No.
Got it. I just wanted to see like how far like she would be, and she's nowhere near a recovery. Okay, carry on.
Let me make sure that it did say April 27th, right?
I believe so. That sounds right.
April 27th, 1982.
Yeah.
Where was
So
that?
May 4th. That's my dad's birthday.
Is it really?
Mm-hmm. Tourist season, stubborns.
My nanny was May 5th. Go
Stubborn.
figure. Yeah. Anyways, he goes to the hospital to interview them.
Okay.
Melissa describes Burgoon as a very tall, a very nice man.
Okay.
But she does not trust him at all.
Uh-oh.
Rightfully so, though, because if I was her at 7 years old, I wouldn't trust any man.
No man.
And we'll talk more about that later, too, as well.
Yeah.
As part of evidence.
Okay.
However, she wanted to help find the man and who did this to her family, so obviously she's going to cooperate and do whatever she can.
Right. Naturally. Makes sense.
Again, she was reported to be on pain medication, but still alert. And Melissa tells Burgoon that last summer they met a man with Mom at Hyde Park.
Okay.
The man was sitting on a bench, and his name was Bill.
Back on the Bill thing. Okay.
Yes.
Got it.
She goes on to tell them Bill had black hair all the way to his ears. But then moments later says Bill is a skinny, older white man with short black hair.
Well, black hair to your ears and short black hair, it says the same thing. Depends on what you describe as to your ears.
Correct.
Okay.
But then she goes on to say that he drove a Volkswagen and they had to drive over a bridge to get to his house. And that he lived with his mother and she was a drunk and not very nice.
Okay.
She also said that they had stayed the night and Bill had given her and her sister soda. All things that a typical 7-year-old would remember.
Oh yeah, every kid's gonna remember the time they got a soda.
So basically at loss where to turn next, Burgoon goes into Joann's diary. And he's going through all the descriptions that Joann has left and whatnot. And he comes across Rodney Lincoln. Joann describes that he has black hair. Among many other things she put into her entries. Very detailed. But basically he sees Rodney's name and that he has black hair and starts to look into him. And then notices his alarming record. and that 5 years previously he was convicted for burglary. But the bigger red flag, in 1973, Rodney was convicted of second-degree murder.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
So this is not
turning out well.
turning well for Rodney. Okay, so we're scooping in on a
Yeah.
big suspect at this point.
Burgoon takes a lineup photo to the girls, and Melissa takes one look at the photo and points at Rodney and says, "That's Bill." So I just want to tell you a little bit about the photo. In the photo it was 4 men all together. And the other 3 men were all red hair, longer hair, and younger. Rodney was the only one in the picture that was older with short black hair.
He looked like the only one that was older, but I thought there was a guy who had darker hair, but it was like, and it was short, but it was like a perm because it was the 80s. It was like curly to it in it, but it was longer than.
It could have been either way.
Rodney
None of them
stood out.
Yeah, he stood out like a sore thumb.
Yeah,
and that's very alarming.
We'll post that picture up.
But on May 23rd, 1982, they arrested Rodney. So this is shortly after it happened.
Wow, when was that? May what?
May 23rd.
Okay, so we're like almost a month.
Yeah.
They instantly are like, all right, he's our man.
Rodney lived across from a park with his mother.
Oh, no.
And so he was charged with capital murder and 2 counts of first-degree assault. His bond was set to $1 million secured.
Oh, wow, that's a really high number for the 80s.
Exactly. And at the time, he was only making $40 a week. Salaries were not high back then.
No. Like
so that was just
like you
outrageous.
hear $1 million for bond nowadays, and people are like, oh, my gosh.
Mm-hmm.
Like, $1 million in the 80s, that's like, they did not want him out.
Yeah, no. He wasn't going anywhere.
No.
But anyways, during the interrogation, he was given a polygraph test and had failed all of the questions, including even when he was asked his name. He failed absolutely everything.
See, those things also go based off of, like, blood pressure and, like, anxiety levels and shit like that. Like, of course, he's fucking, like, not this again.
Yeah. But his trial begins August 8th, 1983.
A whole year later.
And then some, yeah.
And then some.
So, Melissa was able to provide witness testimony for the trial. Renee was considered to be too young at this time.
Yeah, she's 4, now 5 probably by this point.
Yes. Upon the stand, Melissa presented herself evidently very clearly, confident, and on day 8, the jury go into deliberation.
8 days in, and they're already deliberating.
Yes, correct.
Fuck, they were ready to just be done with it.
But it takes them 2 days, and 2 days later, they announce that the jury is hung. And 7-5, 5 of them found Rodney not guilty. And the reason being is they just couldn't trust a child's word and find Rodney guilty for such a serious crime.
I mean, I'm not against that idea with them. I mean, considering the fact of what she all was through, the fact that she was, I mean, they don't know all this stuff though. I mean, they know what she was all through, and just going based off of that, what she was gone through.
And I will tell you, it will be explained more so later, and that when we go over the evidence, why jurors came across that.
Right, but like, just looking at it as a whole picture, not knowing the fact that the poor girl was drilled from literally the day she was found, before she was even went through surgery for recovery, before the pain meds, before everything, the poor girl was fucking drilled.
Correct.
And then, just for me, knowing what she went through, knowing the fact that she was 7, I'm sure by the time this trial was, she was probably 8. Like, no. I couldn't. I mean, I get she was the only eyewitness there. She was the only eyewitness there. Renee was only 4, now 5 years old. You definitely can't take that poor girl's word. No. But I feel like that Melissa should have been held to that same standard. Well, unfortunately.
Next episode, we will definitely dig into as to why they saw against her.
I know.
But October 3rd, 1983, the second trial begins. And this time, instead of a very diverse jury, it is a jury consisting of 12 white men.
Oh, that's terrifying.
There is a new judge and a new witness to the case. A neighbor that supposedly is coming forward and saying that he was threatened by the killer, and that if he would say anything, this killer would,
Come and kill him.
yeah, obviously. He said that the guy was covered in blood and in a disarray, and obviously said that it was Rodney. The prosecuting team made a much larger case about the pubic hair that was found at this crime scene with the blankets.
So they had fucking physical evidence.
And even had forensic scientists testify that the hair found was microscopically similar to Rodney's. Because at this point in time, we don't have DNA testing.
No. So how they were able to even really decide that is fucking stupid. But
correct. The prosecutor took the second chance to paint a more vivid and gruesome case than they had before. When you hear the prosecuting team in their closing statement, it was very moving.
Okay.
But the defense took their second chance to present a case that was flawed due to an 8-year-old's testimony, which obviously is not going to sit right with some people.
Right.
Especially 12 white men.
Just the fact that they used 12 white men.
Yeah.
She's terrified
this whole case
she's
is
terrified
just
of fucking men, guys. Why would you do that?
But anyways, the defense presented a case that was flawed due to the 8-year-old's testimony and the fact that Rodney's name wasn't Bill and all the inconsistencies in the case altogether. October 7th, 1983, Rodney is found guilty of 2 counts of deadly assault with a weapon and manslaughter. Which, obviously, that fucking pissed off Joann's family.
Why did that piss Joann's family off?
Because he was just charged with manslaughter.
Not homicide, not murder.
Yeah, not first-degree murder. But anyways, he's sentenced to 2 life terms for the girls and 15 years for Joann's murder to be served consecutively.
That's stupid that he only got 15 years for I mean, I know more about the case, and I'm not trying to give any spoilers, but the fact that he was given only 15 years for the murder, but life sentences for the girls, it should have been the other way around.
I think it was just due to it, but even Joann was killed in so much brutality, even with her case. But I think the fact that it was done to these children stood out more.
But it was murder. Life sentences and murder. Manslaughter, murder, I don't fucking care. 15 years. If I found out somebody's manslaughtered somebody at the end of the day, that's fucking murder. And I was told all they had is 15 years.
Well, this will not be the only thing that shocks you. And obviously next episode we will go over more evidence, more interrogation, and Rodney himself.
Yes.
But that's it for tonight, y'all.
Gonna leave you on that cliffhanger, you guys. Get excited for that next episode. You'll have to come back. Hopefully I have a better drink option for next time.
Yes, please give her a better drink option.
I need some drink options, you guys. Like I said, you can find us on the Instagram there and drop your drinks. Drop your drinks. I'm gonna hit up was that Tipsy Bartender on Facebook?
Yeah.
See what he's got.
Right.
Otherwise, you guys are gonna keep hearing about my Moscato adventures. Maybe I'll try just different brands of Moscato. I've done that already.
You'll still go back to Barefoot.
Of course. Barefoot just... Hey, Barefoot. That's all I'm going to say. But yeah, I look forward to hearing the rest of this story. I've read on it a little bit. I've heard the bits and pieces. I have not tapped into the podcast yet, but I've great reviews on that podcast.
Yeah, I highly recommend it. And they just came out with a second season too, which I've not started to listen to yet, but I'm excited for it too as well.
Of course you are. I said, you are the true crime lady.
Yep.
So there is that. But yeah, this is exciting. I'm excited for part 2. I can't wait to hear the rest of this stuff, and I have some things I was very big on that I can't wait to try and talk about with that. But yeah.
All right.
Thanks, guys. Bye.